To anthropomorphize AI is a distinct problem. You don't want to think about an AI as an individual or as a person. That could be it's thinking about AI completely wrong. First of all, you don't understand the engineering behind it. And secondly, can be dangerous because if you want the AI to appear as though it's a human and operate like it's a human, you're essentially going to program it to be deceptive. Entrepreneurs are the pioneers of economic prosperity. And I really it's the people willing to look silly and foolish or take the risk that actually brings prosperity to everybody.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder? Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where UX in the AI era is all about delight, not data dumps. Because, just because AI can predict your next move doesn't mean it should. Or, I don't know. Should it? You decide. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Why do so many companies race to automate, only to end up scaling their problems instead of their progress? Anybody else relate to that? It's a little too close to home. Well, in this episode, we take a grounded look at what it really takes to implement AI effectively and build products that serve actual people. It's not just about plugging in the latest tools. It's about knowing why you're doing it, who it serves, and whether the process you're automating even works in the first place. We'll explore the WISER method. It's a framework for thoughtful AI adoption that starts with defining a noble cause and then layers in iteration, user feedback, and purposeful complexity. You'll hear why embracing necessary complexity is sometimes the smartest move and how oversimplifying can backfire, especially in highly regulated or safety-critical environments. This episode also gets real about the entrepreneurial journey, highlighting the messiness, the failures, and the chaotic in between that rarely gets talked about. You'll hear a candid perspective on designing for humans, not just for outputs, and why talking to actual users is still one of the most revolutionary things a founder can do. Kind of surprising, but it's true. And as AI increasingly becomes a reflection of our inputs, we explore the danger of using it to reinforce biases rather than challenge assumptions, and how to build better, smarter systems by leading with curiosity instead of confirmation. If you're building for humans, leading through chaos, or questioning what smart AI adoption actually looks like, this episode is your reminder to slow down, zoom out, and be intentional. Our founder on Tuesday was Darren Milne, co-founder and CEO of VividQ. He joined us to pull back the curtain on the future of holographic displays. And I'll tell you, the future is bright, and what they're doing is absolutely freaking unbelievably amazing. You got to check it out. He unpacks how he and his team are turning light fields into the next computing interface, where glasses-free, real-time 3D experiences will become the norm across automotive, entertainment, and even wearables. From licensing strategy to hardware challenges, Darren gave us a tour of what happens when theoretical physics meets practical, venture-backed product building. If you're curious about what the future looks like, literally, this was a conversation worth replaying. I've listened to it several times myself, and I was there. Well, our expert guest last week was Mark Osborne, founder of Modern Revenue Strategies. He broke down why B2B companies don't just need marketing or sales, they need revenue systems. The subtle difference, but it's pretty important. He challenged the notion of chasing everyone instead of showing how to identify and prioritize your best customers. He also shared his blueprint for full funnel alignment, how to tell better stories that build trust, and why go-to-market fit is just as critical as product market fit. With decades of experience and millions in revenue generated for clients, Mark showed us what it really means to scale with precision. If you missed either episode, you got to go check those out, especially Darren. I'm telling you, it was one of my all-time favorites. It's mind-blowing what they're doing over there at VividQ. My guest today is Anthony Franco, co-author of AI First Principles and the WISER method. With 6 successful exits under his belt, Anthony has spent more than 2 decades helping founders automate strategically, grow smarter, and prep their companies for high-value exits. He's also the host of the How to Founder podcast, where he shares brutally honest, actionable insights for navigating entrepreneurship without the fluff. Welcome someone who knows what it takes to build with AI, scale with purpose, and fail forward, Anthony Franco. Hey, Anthony, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for having me.
You sold 6 companies and helped 40% of the Fortune 100. It's pretty awesome. And you still describe yourself as a blue-collar entrepreneur. How has that identity shaped the way you build and lead?
I forgot I said that, actually. Yeah, I do. I guess blue-collar does kind of describe it. I imagine blue-collar as people that roll their sleeves up and picture themselves as managers, but doers that get people to join you in the journey. It's not like go there. It's like come here with me. That's how I imagine blue collar. You have calluses on your hands from the work. That comes from working for leaders that never walked a factory floor, didn't understand or talk to a customer, and just not having perspective from how the people doing the actual work see the world. I think that my leadership style is let's, arm in arm, let's do this together, not do as I say, not as I do.
That's really, really good. Very refreshing.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm that unique in that. I think a lot of leaders would say the same thing.
I think a lot of them might say that. Some of them wouldn't, for sure. Some of them might say that. I think it's more rare to find somebody that does that in practice, ongoing and consciously. Like really, focused in on the actual doing, not just leading or, I did it 20 years ago. So, I probably still know how to do some of it today.
I don't know how many leaders I've had tell me that people that I've worked for that tells me, when I say, hey, why are we doing it this way? They're like, look, I have 20 years of experience in this industry. And it's like, okay,
right.
I all of a sudden I check out like, all right, you're full of it. I guess my leadership style comes from working for a lot of bad leaders. And at least I'm not doing that stuff.
There we go. Well, you've had some amazing wins, and you're also known for sharing the face plants. And I think we all have those. I mean, anybody that has wins has, fallen on their face countless times. Why do you think it's important for founders to talk about the messy middle instead of just the exit and the high points?
I love entrepreneurs. Genuinely, I love the practice. On my podcast, we say that entrepreneurs are the pioneers of economic prosperity. And I really it's the people willing to look silly and foolish or take the risk that actually brings prosperity to everybody. There's a lot of tropes, entrepreneurial tropes, the hustle porn that's out there that talks about, just thinking positive and doing the right things, just putting your nose to the grindstone is all it really takes to be successful. And that is so not true. There's so much luck and doing things for the first time and screwing it up. That is what real entrepreneurship is about. Honestly, it's just hoping you succeed 10% of the time. If you win 10% of the time and fail 90%, you still win.
Yes.
Because if you're doing micro failures all the time, you're still learning. So I think it's really important to talk about that 90% more, and everybody's talking about the 10% of the wins. And I just don't think that's honest.
It definitely is. And I think it creates a false narrative. You look in the TechCrunch, and somebody rolled out of bed and created a unicorn. Wow, that's amazing. But that's not the real story. There's so much more that happens along the way, and every successful company, I think, has almost died 10 times or more.
Yeah, I mean, even Elon Musk, right? I mean, even he was near bankruptcy at 2 companies at the same time.
Yeah.
And I love how he talks about that, is honest about it. But yeah, that's most of the time for all of us. I draw this analogy. So, people have this vision of entrepreneurship like whitewater rafting. And, it's exciting and exhilarating, but in reality, it's in a raft on a waterfall falling. It's not whitewater rafting. It's panic all the time. And that chaos is what it needs to look like for it to be successful. And you have to be comfortable in that chaos. Again, setting the right expectations, I think, is really critical for people. And if I've talked people out of entrepreneurship, that's actually a good thing.
Yes.
It's not for everybody. Yeah.
It's not. And so many people would be so much better off if they would stay in a job that, pays well and they enjoy and less stress, instead of, trying to be an entrepreneur and work for nothing and struggle and, maybe make it. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things that if that's your passion, if that's what you love and that's the way you're wired, then staying in a job or doing it for somebody else just doesn't work.
I kind of envy people that can live quote unquote normal lives.
I do sometimes.
I'm broken. Yeah, I'm really broken. And most entrepreneurs are. We'd have no balance. And so, yeah, value what you have. If you have a good 9 to 5, you're working for a good leader. I was just talking about this on my podcast actually yesterday morning with Chris. Most entrepreneurs, most founders, when they're going to raise capital, which is especially now, a huge mistake to go raise capital, are looking to just replace their job. They're looking for a different way by raising capital, they're looking for a way to replace their paycheck so they can quit their job that they hate. That's not the right motivation to become an entrepreneur. It's actually the exact opposite, and you will likely fail. You have to be unreasonably driven to solve a customer pain point or problem, and uniquely positioned to do that. And even still, you're still fighting the odds are really stacked against you.
Yeah, it's got to be something that comes from something way, way deeper than a paycheck or an exit someday, or trying to join the founders club, or whatever it is. I mean, it's got to come from something that you're absolutely so committed to solving a problem that you're willing to put it all on the line and really just push the boundaries of what's possible in order to build a company and succeed.
Push yourself more than what you ever thought was possible. Yeah.
And it's so much fun.
Is it?
Actually, it is. It really is.
Yeah,
I love it. I would not do anything else.
I did this presentation, some things that are unique to entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs would not recommend entrepreneurship to anybody. They wouldn't recommend it. And yet they wouldn't choose anything else for themselves.
Yep.
It's this weird,
relate to that.
Like I said, we're broken. Like there's something wrong with us.
Yeah. That's funny. Well, let's dig into your AI first principles. We talked about that before. Automating bad processes creates bad agents. What's an example of that in the wild?
So it's an open source project that I started with this company called OneReach, and have expanded it out to people in Meta, Google, Facebook. We have contributors from the Agile Manifesto that contributed to the original Agile Manifesto. And it's born out of this notion that, we just need to add some AI to this and it'll be good. The truth is what really the inspiration came from me watching how OneReach delivered on Agentic orchestration they have enterprise clients, and watching how their team did it. It was really different. They weren't having IT discussions. They weren't having integration discussions or API discussions. Somewhat because AI kind of eliminates need for some of that, but more because they had implemented based on what clients told them at first and saw a lot of failures. They start their engagements with, let's evaluate what can be improved with AI, which often leads to a conversation of, where is your business broken right now?
Right.
There's all kinds of examples. To keep them generic, it's like 7 approval processes, or nobody owning a process, or trying to go through use cases in my head that I'm allowed to talk about, and they're still really generic. So I apologize for that. But it's really comes down to bureaucracy that makes life miserable. Those are the areas that AI can really improve. But what we've seen quite a bit, especially early on, and with other and not with OneReach customers now, but with other implementations, where I'm coming in to help kind of unwind some things, is they automated broken things. They automated the bureaucracy instead of just automating what is necessary complexity and abstracting complexity for their employees and customers. And that has been exceptionally successful, as long as you have the right principles in place and the right guardrails in place.
So important. And I've seen that as well. You have a bad process or even no process, and let's automate this thing. And they don't even know exactly what it is they're doing. Just automation is cool and AI makes it easy. So let's automate it.
And oftentimes, here's another place where it breaks down. You get a team that is excited to rewrite the system. This is a common developer problem, right? So you're coming in as a new consultant or a new leader within IT or within software dev, and you're charged with improving a system. And you start looking at the system as it currently sits, and you're like, this is a mess. There's so much technical debt. It's just going to be so much easier to rewrite this and rebuild it from the ground up. And that is true, but you're missing, by just kind of throwing it away in your mind the way things are currently done, you may be missing some hidden business logic, some reasons for things being the way they are, some regulatory compliance that is baked into the code that if you just try to rewrite it from scratch, you're going to wind up with spaghetti code in the end anyway, because you're always like, oh yeah, we did this and we did that. So part of what AI First Principles is about, one of the principles is you have to earn the right to rebuild. In other words, you have to incrementally improve what you currently have so that you can show you understand why it exists that way. Once you've gone through that pain of living in the system that exists, now you have probably enough knowledge to rebuild it wisely.
You understand what the actual problem is. It's not just building a more elegant solution or something that looks better or fixing all the spaghetti code, but it has to be something that really solves an actual problem, a need in the marketplace that somebody wants, it's valuable, that the old system was doing. And there's a lot of that gets kind of underwater, especially with code bases that have been around for a while.
I mean, not too long ago, I was consulting for an airline that was still running on a system based on vacuum tubes. That's not even hyper. Yeah. That's a literal fact. They were still green screen vacuum tube systems and still clinging to it, like not wanting to let it go.
Yeah, it is. It's understanding. I love that. Earning the right to rebuild, understanding what it is, the true value, what the core is, and solving the problem. And like, is it taking micro steps to that? And so it's, fixing something small and then, a little more and a little more and a little more and iterating that.
And so there's a lot of truism still in the Agile Manifesto iteration. With AI, and actually I would argue even when you're developing in Agile, look, my only criticism to Agile development is design and user experience is not really central to the concept, right? I mean, they even shove design into Sprint Zero. They don't even give it a legit name. So you're like, oh yeah, we'll just throw you up front and then we'll go into our iterations. But there's still a lot of really good meat to that understanding of a system through iteration. The best way to do that in an existing system, I think, is to first start with incremental baby step improvements. Make a change, watch. Make a change, watch. Interview the people in the factory or using the system, the customer service reps. Go sit in there at their desk and watch them and watch what they're doing and listen to them, and then go, okay, I can improve that. I can make that better. If there's Post-it notes on the side of their monitor or there's a printout on the side of their desk, figure out why that thing is sitting there. That's an opportunity to automate and to improve with AI.
Yeah, so good. You learn so much from just doing that and understanding how users are using the system. Because when we build, I think a lot of times we have an idea of what they're going to do, but then in practice, you find out that they're using it different than what we envisioned, sometimes for use cases that we never envisioned.
Yeah, it's really funny. So one of the companies I built was a consulting firm we essentially built user interfaces on top of legacy systems for Fortune 100 companies. Whenever I was in the pitch process, right, when I was talking to the executives, I would casually say, okay, so our process, the first thing we do is actually go talk to end users, and they go, wait. You're going to go talk to the end users? I'm like, yeah, we're going to talk. And then that's genius. Why? Like I was revealing something that they hadn't talked to before. Now, things have shifted a little bit and executives have become more aware of this thing called user experience and UX, and they're trying to embed it. But, if you're a leader running a large department and you have delegated the customer interview process, you're missing the point.
Yes.
You need to know, and you need to be the chief customer advocate, the chief end user advocate for anything that your team is building.
Super, super important. Yeah, it's funny that is something that seems revolutionary. It is good that it's becoming less that way, but I think still in a lot of organizations it is. Some of it's from a development standpoint, it's the curse of knowledge, because we think we know, we built the solution, and so we already know everything. And a lot of assumptions are baked into that.
Yeah, and there was a point at which UX was actually dying, and now with the resurgence of AI, I think we call them LXAs or UX architects, lead experience architects, the lead designers who have built a career on understanding the human connection and user flows and user interviews. They're the ones that have the opportunity to really dominate in the AI world, because now you don't need to know how to code what you need to know is how to build user flows.
Yeah.
And that's really where AI shines and helps people like that become critically important to any process redesign.
A powerful idea that you mentioned earlier was that not all complexity is bad. How do founders tell the difference between complexity that adds value or maybe adds friction at the right points and the kind that they should be eliminating?
Yeah, I mean, this comes down to, what is your job? What is your job as, what's the first principle? Why are you writing the software? The reason why you're writing software is to make somebody's life easier. It's not to make your life easier. And so I call it necessary complexity. There's some complexity that is a competitive advantage or is there because you have some compliance requirements or legal requirements, or that you need to triple and quadruple check because if you don't, somebody could die. And so that kind of complexity, it's your job to understand at a deep level, and whenever possible, abstract the complexity for the end user. How do you define what is necessary complexity? If you remove it, what bad things are going to happen? There's this concept called risk burn down that they use in NASA, where it's you're always looking at what risks are involved in a process or in creating something or engineering something. And you're always looking for what the biggest risk items are and burning those risks down. And that's kind of what you're trying to do is understand the complexity and abstract the complexity into bite-sized chunks. And I think that's incredibly important. And I think by nature, that's what most software developers do anyway.
With users, we talked about UI, UX. Now we also have AI agents that are essentially users. How does design thinking and UX, how are those central? And when you have agents that are AI agents that are using the system, and how should SaaS teams be thinking or doing things differently when building interfaces?
To anthropomorphize AI is a distinct problem. You don't want to think about an AI as an individual or as a person. That could be it's thinking about AI completely wrong. First of all, you don't understand the engineering behind it. And secondly, can be dangerous because if you want the AI to appear as though it's a human and operate like it's a human, you're essentially going to program it to be deceptive. And people, one of the principles is deception destroys trust, meaning that you need to make the fact that the user's using AI very obvious and repetitively obvious, not buried in your user agreement, right? But it's constantly reminding you, hey, I'm an AI. You need to double check my stuff. You're not dealing with a real person. But I wanted to address that because the other part of your question is, the other answer to your question is really important. And your question was, how do you engage with AI as a designer?
Right.
And the really interesting thing that I have noticed, I'm going to try not to say Elon Musk another time in this, but I'm going to use him as another example. I apologize for saying him again. There's a great example here that I don't think he's been explicit about it, but he's designing robots. And when I say robots, I mean Tesla cars and the Optimus that's coming out.
Sure.
To conform to the world the way it exists now. It's why he is such a staunch advocate for only using cameras and not LiDAR when understanding the road. It's because the roads are designed for people with vision and hearing, and that's it. We don't have LiDAR. So the roads aren't designed that way. They're designed for bipedal human beings behind a wheel. He's designing Optimus to conform to what humans need. And so when designing specifically for AI agents, you should design for humans, because that's how AI agents should interact with the world, as though it's designed for human beings. I know somebody's going to call BS on me on this, and they're probably going to be right, but I'm trying to think of a scenario where that's not true. I think designing for AI should be the same as designing for humans, because one, what happens if you need a human to interact with it? It becomes a lot more approachable for that human being.
Yes.
It's a lot easier to test and QA, right? And two, if the AI is built correctly, if the LLM is built correctly, it's designed to engage with humans anyway. So it's going to see the world through that lens.
Ever notice how every leadership book tells you to take the journey, but none really show you the map? Well, after scaling multiple companies to over 260 million in combined revenue and working with over 1,000 leaders, I discovered the key difference that separates leaders who burn out from those who build unstoppable momentum. It's not strategy, not charisma, it's not even luck. It's relationships, specifically 4 of them. My new book, The Captain's Keys, reveals the stability matrix, a proven system that transforms leadership from survival into sustainable success. Inside, you'll discover the 4 critical relationships every leader needs and exactly how to build them. You can get your copy at thecaptainskeys.com, Amazon, or your favorite bookstore, and it's available in print, ebook, and audio. You don't need another playbook. You just need the right people in your boat. So it's really, really smart to think about it that way. Because if you're building for a human audience, then you're going to win. And I've been amazed. I don't know, it's probably a year ago. Somebody was pulling up a PDF. He goes, look, AI can see now. It's like, hey, what do I have on my screen? And it's actually reading the PDF just like a person would. Like that's pretty amazing. So I think that you're right. If we build it that way.
The problem that engineers have on occasion is they build things for a world that the way it should be, not the way it is.
Yes.
My best example of that is to talk about, do you know why the Falcon 9 rocket was the diameter it was?
Why is that?
Because of the width of horse and carriage wheels. The distance between the wheels on a buggy. And the reason why that's true is because that width of those buggies is what designed the width of railroad tracks, which is that's what the tunnels were designed for, the diameter of the tunnels. So they had to design the Falcon 9 rocket based on technology that's over 100 years old, because that's how the world was built. And I love that analogy, because it's like, yeah, you have to you have to recognize that you're dealing with a world that's not going to conform to you. You have to conform to it.
Well, your Wiser framework takes a structured approach to rebuilding with AI. And so let's get into that a little bit. I mean, without giving it all away, what's the first step SaaS teams should take when operationalizing AI today?
Think of the AI first principles as kind of like the manifesto by which we should operate. And that's all open source. The Wiser method is a stab at putting those principles into practice. It's assess, iterate, master is really kind of the 3 big buckets of big phases. The W in Wiser is ask why. Why does this thing exist? Why are we here? What are we trying to accomplish? What's our mission? What's the grand vision? Why are we doing this? And so the first step is, I call it the noble cause. And I wish I could take credit for that, but that's actually the CEO of OneReach gave it to me. Do you remember the Princess Bride, the picture of the movie, The Princess Bride?
Yes.
And they're in there and they're trying to save his life. And they ask, why should we save this guy's life? And they say, it's for love. And they say, oh, there's no more noble cause than love. And so I love that framing is, you need to have a noble cause for why you're doing this, because it's hard, right? You need something to point to that says, this is why we're here. This is why we wake up in the morning. And that's a big part of that first step of Wiser. It's, you have to define the mission, and you have to define what you currently think exists, which is going to be wrong. Yes. And then going back to the principles, now that you have that framing of why you're doing this and what exists, now you go in and you start making incremental improvements to that mission. And then you're constantly changing the charter of, okay, here's what we know now. Here's how we changed it. Here's what we know now. And you just do that in iterative micro loops until you understand it enough to rebuild.
That's really, really good first step. Understanding the why, super, super critical.
I will say that comes from not an insignificant number of engagements where I've asked executives, okay, so why are you doing this? And the answer is because we have budget for it. And that's
That's a terrible answer.
Guaranteed recipe for failure. You are going to fail if you don't know why you're doing something.
That's a tough question for a lot of companies to answer. And similar conversation is, why do you deserve to exist? And asking that question, you get founders like, well, because we do. They're like, no. Why do you deserve to exist? Why would somebody pick you? Why should somebody bet on you instead of everything else out there? Why do you deserve to exist? And that's a really hard conversation.
I like that framing. I always ask the question in that same question in a slightly different way. Like, why do companies choose you over your competition?
Yeah,
it's the same question. I like your framing of it better because I like being confrontational. It's more confrontational.
It is. It's a shocking question. It's like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah. What do you mean? Why do I deserve to exist? Yeah.
But a lot of founders have just not thought that deeply about it just because, we wanted to build a thing. Well, who cares? Nobody cares about your thing, but why, what is the problem you're solving? What do they really care about? And what do you care about? Why does this matter? And you get into some really, really good discussions, and it can be some wrestling, but the answers that come out of that are really, really good.
I've unfortunately talked my way out of a lot of engagements because I couldn't move past that why question.
It's a tough one.
I can't move unless I know why. I literally cannot move. I can't take one step unless I know why I'm taking the step that direction.
One of the things you've warned about is founders chasing AI trends without solving real problems first. What are some common patterns that you see in terms or in teams that fail at AI implementation because they're just chasing trends?
Well, I'm trying to come up with a different answer than one I've already given, which is basically most companies are trying to automate like customer service rep. And first of all, there's a lot of point solutions that kind of do that okay now. One of the big mistakes that I see is believing that AI should be autonomous and not defining a hierarchy of agency. So in other words, defining when does a human need to be put in the loop? When do we need to have somebody come in and take a look at this? Thinking that AI is going to replace a job or replace a role or replace headcount, when in reality it should multiply your productivity. So you should, instead of your team reducing the size, you should think about your team increasing the number of customers they can handle or they can talk to. Another mistake along that same line is not challenging an LLM. I see this all the time, and it manifests even in personal lives as well, but believing the BS that the AI tells you. I mean, how many times have you asked AI, and I'll put this in a context that I think everybody will understand that's been in ChatGPT or Claude, where they ask AI for this question and the AI spits out this really comprehensive answer. And you're like, but you forgot about this. And it'll say, oh, you're absolutely right. And it'll reframe it. And no, I just lied to you. You should have never said that. And say, oh, you're absolutely right. Like AI has a user bias. In other words, it wants to tell you what you want to believe. The biggest mistakes I see in AI is using it to confirm your own bias rather than to challenge your assumptions and really forcing it to be a critic. And I know I'm not answering your question absolutely directly, but I'm trying to come up with something that is truly something unique other than automating the wrong stuff.
Oh, that's really, really good because it's hard to get it to disagree with you or be contrarian or not tell you what you want to hear.
You have to trick it.
Yes.
You have to fool it. Like this isn't for me. one of the tactics I use there is telling it, okay, I'm trying to compete against this competitor who believes this.
Right.
You have to do the double negative. You have to say it's not, this isn't for me. Like, help me argue this. That genuinely improve results. I've also read, but I can't bring myself to it. If you're really cruel to AI, it gives you better answers. I can't bring myself to do it.
Yeah, that is kind of counter.
Yeah, but apparently it does yield better results. But I can't bring myself to be cruel. So even to something that I know isn't real.
Well, I think that's a smart way to do it, because you are competing, because it's ideas competing against each other. And so it's how do I, what am I not seeing? What are the things that I'm not thinking about, and asking the question, how do I compete against this? What's the other side? And so it's helping to challenge your own assumptions. Like, how do I argue against this? And so you're really able to see the other side. But there's definitely a confirmation bias, and we eat it up. I think it's one of the reasons that people like AI so much. It's friendly, and it tells me what I already know and tells me I'm awesome.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I never thought of it that way. You're absolutely right. Like every time I see that, like, oh, brother, yeah. And every once in a while I want to see that, right? I'll ask a question in a leading way so that I get that answer. And I'm like, I'm doing it to myself now. Like, I have no excuse.
Yeah, we want to be right. And so we can definitely prompt it so that we are.
And in reality, we should be looking at AI as telling us why we're wrong.
Well, in your view, what does it actually mean for a business to be AI ready? Not just in theory, but actually in practice.
If I asked you this question, I'm going to ask you a question. I want to see what your answer is.
Sure.
When should a company start adopting AI?
The initial answer would be immediately, but in very specific use cases.
Yeah. And so waiting till you're ready is not the right answer, right? You should be. I love that MIT study that came out, said 95% of all AI pilots have failed, which is completely missing the point. The study is
exactly.
Pilots are supposed to fail. You're testing and seeing what works and what doesn't. You're testing the edges. You're testing whether or not you know what you know and what works and what doesn't. So I would say 100% of them succeeded because they gave that company knowledge that they didn't have before.
Exactly.
So I would say you're AI ready now, but you're not ready to automate the entire company. You're not ready for a self-driving company. You're not even close. But if you're not starting to automate stuff now, if you as the leader of that company aren't trying to understand what a good prompt looks like, just use ChatGPT and understand, how do you develop a good practice for writing prompts?
Right.
That sounds daunting. It's really not. You can ask the AI to write a good prompt for you, and then you can decipher what a good prompt looks like.
Right.
So you should be doing that at a minimum and using it as a thought partner. You're ready for that now. Now, when it comes to orchestration, when is a company ready for agentic orchestration? Now you're doing a cost benefit analysis. Like it's not free, it's not cheap, even though you can download tools like N8N for free, and you can use, sure. I mean, Claude is relatively inexpensive and so is GPT for what you can do with it. The cost is really understanding your systems and understanding how things work within your company from the ground up. So I would say the first thing that you need to do is assess whether, where does the tribal knowledge exist? Who are the key people in your company that really know how things work, and engage them in a pilot. And yeah, some outside expertise is awesome to help you avoid some really big mistakes, but you probably have the knowledge internally to not have to go hire Deloitte to help you figure this out.
It's really good.
Sorry, Deloitte. I like Deloitte, but not for this.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the stat 95% of those projects fail. That means 5% of them worked. And if you should run 10 tests, and one of those is probably going to pay off, maybe 2 or 3. Who knows? But you really understanding the knowledge that you get from trying that, I think, is absolutely invaluable, because that makes the next iteration better.
Yeah, and 95% is not that far off from, how many software projects fail?
All of them to some degree.
It's more than 70% of software projects are considered failures. So AI's not been around that long and they're already at 95.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Right. So they're doing all right.
Well, founders that are, trying to integrate AI without making the mistake, I think kind of, two opposite sides. One is over engineering and the other is just underthinking it. What's one battle tested move they can make this week to get smarter, not just move faster?
Stop coding. Go talk to the person you're coding for. not your manager, but the end user.
The end user.
The end user, getting back to that stupid question, why are you doing this? The people that know why you're doing this are the people you should be asking, and they're the end users. If you're lost on what to do next, stop writing code. Stop making this thing beautiful to only you, and go try to solve an actual user pain point. If you have a project manager or scrum master, they're going to value that. As a software developer, they're going to be like, well, I decided to go talk to our end user and try to figure out really why I'm trying to solve what this problem is that we're trying to solve. And actually what they said was this. They're going to give you a hug. I can almost guarantee you they're going to hug you for doing that, because there aren't many engineers that actually care about the human element. And really, that's why we're put on the planet in the first place, right? To help one another.
I think it's one of the greatest uses of time is getting engineers out of the office and into client sites and actually interacting and spending time. One, they get to see their work in use, which is pretty motivating. But just those conversations are absolutely invaluable. And they start thinking differently about what they're building and how they're building it. Well, where can people learn more about you online?
So I'm available on LinkedIn, just Anthony Franco on LinkedIn. And my podcast is howtofounder.com. And my LinkedIn profile is there. And then I would encourage your folks to go out and visit aifirstprinciples.org. And they can offer to contribute or sign the current version. We're actually in the process of revising it to the next iteration. But those are the three places: LinkedIn, howtofounder.com, and aifirstprinciples.org.
Outstanding. We'll make sure and link all of that in the show notes. Anthony, It's been a great conversation. Super valuable today. Yeah. Thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me again.
Thanks again, Anthony, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Anthony and AI First Principles at aifirstprinciples.org. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel as well. It's at Champion Leadership. We have full video episodes, training, outtakes, shorts, reels, lots of stuff over there for you on YouTube. And again, that's at Champion Leadership. Thought leaders share. Share this episode with a dev who wrote 1,000 lines of code and named every function after Taylor Swift songs. Anybody else have a dev like that in their world? Everyone who shares this week gets a compiler that throws errors only when your variable names are emotionally confusing. It also sings when tests pass. How do you manage feature flags at scale without drowning in tech debt or branching a billion times or slowing down releases? In the next episode, we have Eagle Ostus, co-founder and CEO of Unleash, the world's leading open source feature management platform. With roots in enterprise software and a deep understanding of both product strategy and engineering, Eagle is helping teams everywhere transition from DevOps to feature ops. His approach gives developers safer, smarter ways to ship, especially in today's fast-moving world of agentic software. What do brand clarity and magic have in common? Might be more than you think. 1 week from today, we're going to ask Jimmy Gibson all about that. He is VP of Brand Communication at Thrive Internet Marketing Agency, and he's also a former professional magician. With over 25 years in marketing, a TEDx talk under his belt, and a Forbes agency council seat, Jimmy brings storytelling, showmanship, and strategic clarity to every brand he touches. Now he's helping businesses cut through the noise, simplify their message, and actually connect with audiences that matter. I'll see you next time, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSFuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.